No.
I've always asked myself the question, how many emulators can I run inside of an emulator? You know, like emulatorception on crack. What will happen 5 layers deep into emulation? I don't know, but it is possible to stack emulators. For example, what made me think of this in the first place was Ocarina of Time on the Wii Virtual Console being ran in Dolphin. So we have my computer emulating a Wii, which is emulating a Nintendo 64, which is playing Ocarina of Time. Surprisingly, this is my preferred way to play Ocarina of Time on PC. Why? Well, Wii VC is the preferred version for speedrunning most of the time, and despite Ocarina of Time on the Wii basically being an emulator that just runs a regular 1.2 Ocarina of Time ROM, there are differences in the Wii version, all caused by emulation inaccuracies. None of these differences are really noticeable in a casual playthrough, aside from the game having an extremely low chance to randomly crash. But for speedrunners, there are notable differences. In the N64 version of the game, holding a stick as Adult Link will crash the game. But the exact same thing on a Wii does absolutely nothing. The effects of stick as adult vary quite a bit depending on the emulator you use. Wii VC has no effect. Wii 64, the Wii's homebrew emulator, is more accurate and crashes like the N64 does. A fork of that emulator called Wii 64 Rice doesn't do either of those things. It unloads all actors and UI elements, including Link's torso, lags the game, and eventually crashes. Just very interesting in my opinion. Talking about a stick from a 28-year-old video game may seem completely irrelevant to this video, but it just goes to show that emulators are not 100% accurate. You can take an identical version of Ocarina of Time, run it through 3 different emulators, and come out with 3 completely different results. Surprisingly, slapping Dolphin on top of Wii Virtual Console isn't actually that bad. Even most complex glitches involving memory manipulation work perfectly fine in Dolphin, but there are some added inaccuracies. A glitch called Dynapoly warping doesn't work properly in Dolphin. It normally creates a glitchy piece of collision that warps the player to a desired location. In Dolphin, instead of warping us, the glitchy collision changes the fog color to magenta and eventually engulfs the entire screen. So you can experience Ocarina of Time in true CGA magenta graphics. I just find these sort of things extremely interesting. The way an emulator seems perfectly accurate on the surface, but can change very small things that affect how a game works. Wii Virtual Console adds some inaccuracies and differences, and Dolphin on top of that creates more. It struck me with a question. What actually happens when continuing further down this chain of emulators? Theoretically, it should get more and more degraded the further we go down it. Now, unfortunate for us, it isn't as simple as just loading all the emulators and being done with it. Many emulators can't even boot into a console's operating system, let alone load homebrew software. And the emulators that can run homebrew software have massive compatibility issues. There's surely no sane reason to actually play an emulator inside of an emulator like this, so I doubt emulator developers are going out of their way to fix random bugs in homebrew software. And it's pretty obvious because that was a massive issue in the making of this video. Between homebrew compatibility issues in emulators and janky homebrew software in general, the likelihood of an issue occurring somewhere down the chain of emulators is quite high.
Bloody hell! Bang. Help me! No.
It is laughable how common it is for an emulator to immediately crash or just do absolutely nothing when you try to open it in another emulator. An immediate example of one not working is the N64 emulator I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Wii 64 doesn't work in Dolphin. When you try to load a ROM, it just flashes a black screen and then goes away. PSX on the Wii does exactly the same thing. The only emulator I was able to get working in Dolphin was MGBA, which seems like a complete dead end, but surprisingly, there is an NES emulator made for the GBA. So here's the NES emulator for the GBA. And this is kind of sketchy, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, apac.exe. Oh my fucking god. Shit is gonna load my PC with spyware. And this does get flagged and virus total. So I don't know, but we're gonna just fuck it. We're gonna. Okay. Holy shit. This is Dolphin Emulator emulating a Wii, which is emulating a Game Boy Advance, which is emulating a NES. This is fucking crazy. So, the issue is getting further from this. So the NES really doesn't have the capability to emulate anything. There is so much variable input delay. It is insane. Like, sometimes it's kind of fine, but sometimes it just like that. It just eats my inputs. It's so bad. Holy shit. Like, that jump is impossible because of input delay. You literally, you just walk off and it eats your input. Pipe jump? Nope. I don't even know why I tried that. We have to take a look at the minus world. Oh, we have a pipe. Holy shit. Alright, let's go here. Oh, no, that's so boring. Take me somewhere cool, please. No, I was just gonna do that. It's easy to see that 3 layers of emulators doesn't actually do much, aside from adding a significant amount of input delay. And from trying a few other games, I noticed that the input delay didn't feel nearly as bad. Thinking about it more, I'd say it's probably the same amount of actual delay, but it's just the fact that SMB1 is just particularly sensitive to input delay. Now, our issue from here is getting any further than this. The NES and its 6502 processor is a complete brick wall for our emulation chain. It just isn't capable of emulating anything, so our only real option is going backwards, and I decided to start the emulation chain with Xenia. One of the most powerful consoles an Xbox 360 can emulate is a Nintendo DS, so I tried that first, with some very interesting results.
Yes.
Yeah, it seems like it's frozen. Okay, this is a massive development. Holy shit.
It's me, Mario.
Dude, that shit could be a fucking creepypasta. What the hell is that?
Mario.
We choose a file. Yeah, I don't think we're getting anywhere with this. But okay, again, the problem that we run into again is that the emulators made for the DS are made for an R4 cartridge. And they typically have to interface with the cartridge and can't be ran in an emulator. So we're going to see how that goes. But okay, again, I have really low expectations for this, but we're just going to launch. Fat init default failed. Yeah. The emulator cannot access the SD card where our ROMs are supposed to be because it doesn't exist. After that failure, I tried a few more things. I tried PPSSPP in Ryujinx. It froze and basically locked up my entire computer. I tried PPSSPP in Xenia, but the Xbox 360 version of PPSSPP only supports .iso files, and Homebrew is typically not in that format. I did try packing the emulator files into an ISO, but it just gave me a black screen. And it's just a black screen, dude. Oh, there went my Wii sensor bar. But you get the idea. This is so fucking frustrating, bro. We're like hard locked at 3. We're now back in Dolphin, so we're back to literally square one. But I've found a GBA emulator that runs under DOS. There is a port of DOSBox to the Wii, so I'm going to try to run that emulator under DOS and then run the NES emulator. Oh, we need a keyboard for this, though. Alright, this is my real Wii. I have a capture card set up, so I'm just going to try to launch this to see how it actually works on the actual Wii. So the home button is bound to that. So you click the home button, it pulls up this virtual keyboard. So, I mean, clearly DOS does work. So let's try this. Boom. Now we click, is it F12? Yep. Go down to C. It is really chugging, but it is trying. Holy fucking shit, this is terrible. So I think that at the top is the speed indicator, which is running at 6% speed. Fatal, memory messed up. Press any key. Well, that worked surprisingly, so let's go back to Dolphin and try this again. Actually, click return. And so began the struggle of getting a keyboard to work. The Connect USB keyboard setting in Dolphin does absolutely nothing in DOSBox. The keyboard works in the homebrew channel, but just not in DOSBox. And that's the kind of weird compatibility issues you would probably expect from this janky ass setup. But I tried passing a USB keyboard to Dolphin, it didn't work. I tried the GameCube keyboard controller, it also didn't work. And worst of all, the virtual keyboard that DOSBox on the Wii has doesn't work in Dolphin for some reason. The return key, which is bound to the Wii home button, doesn't do anything. And nor does binding the key to something different. I eventually found a forum post from 2010 explaining the exact same issue I was having. So my hopes of fixing that kind of went down the shitter, and I just decided to try to boot the game from my autoexec file. Alright, so I've added these lines to my autoexec file. We're gonna see if it works. Holy shit! That's the game it's doing it literally one row of pixels. I mean, if this isn't peak emulation, I don't know what is. Look at this Minish Cap. Does this count? I don't think this counts. I'm gonna try, I switched to interpreter mode because it wasn't working. I was trying to get a more accurate emulation, but I'm gonna switch back to recompiler and see if that helps. Oh, that's way faster, but it's still just a fucking square. Oh my god. Oh, what? You know what? I think this is not a GBA emulator. This is a regular Game Boy emulator, but it is working despite us not having a working keyboard. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so this is a GBA emulator, so we're gonna try this. So I think this is the game once again, and it's just not. It just cannot handle this. Maybe that really is the cap. Maybe it's just 3. Maybe 3. That's so boring though.
Hey, want to listen to some tunes?
It's music to your ears. It's absolute music to your ears. Listening, it's literally like when Gmod like freezes. It just replays the same fucking sound over and over and over.
Kamanos. Bele kas gali nutikt. Turiu būt pasiruošus jau.
Alright, I've managed to get this working in Vita 3K. So this is my PC emulating a PS Vita, emulating DOS, which is emulating a GBA, which is emulating a NES. So we've hit 4 layers of emulation. This is the actual gameplay. Holy fuck. Oh. I'm gonna die to the first Goomba. The real question is how do we get further from this? So what is the path forward? Because this, I mean, just look at this. Look like what, and I mean, just the degradation is so bad at this point. It's just completely unplayable. I really don't know if we can get further than this. I'm really thinking about strategy, but we have to beat this level. That's my goal. I really want to look at the minus world, but I don't think that's possible. But I'm really determined to beat this level. So this last Goomba here, I'm fucking scared of it. No! Oh my, dude. Alright, I've increased the CPU speed significantly, and that is a lot faster, but it's still really slow. Now it's going all crazy, holy shit. But, I mean, that is better, I guess. See, now it's lagging like a real emulator. It has this really weird slowdown, but I think we can make it to the minus world at least. Okay. So I think it's now bottlenecked by the emulated PS Vita instead of the emulated DOS. Because up here it says 8 FPS. So, yeah. Before, it was saying 60, even though it was like 1 FPS per minute. So maybe we decrease our CPU speed. We've finally beat the level. That took about 5 minutes. 5 painful minutes. Oh, it's counting the time. This is gonna take so long. Look how slow that is. So, the real question everyone's asking is, will this run Doom? It seems faster than the other games, which is really odd, but it's... Well, here it is. Here's Doom. It's the most unconventional way to play Doom possible. Well, we've given third-party emulators a try, but what about first-party ones? Like the Xenon Fusion emulator for the Xbox 360, or Zifu for short. It's Microsoft's official OG Xbox emulator. And don't let it fool you, it is just an emulator. I say this because generally you'll have a completely frictionless time playing supported games, and for how low power the 360 is, it's kind of hard to imagine it doing full-speed Xbox emulation. But that it does. There are some emulation-related bugs in certain officially supported games, like the insane load times in Ninja Gaiden Black. It is genuinely painful how slow it is. So much that speedrunners have changed the timing standard to remove load times entirely. If you've ever played Ninja Gaiden Black on Xbox One or Series consoles, you'll notice this exact same loading issue is present. And that is not a coincidence. Microsoft still uses the same Zifu emulator for those consoles. It's literally running an Xbox 360 emulator and then the OG Xbox emulator under that. So it's 2 layers of emulators out of the box, which you would think is super inefficient, and it probably is, but I don't know. I assume it might be just because of some sort of security thing, like super ultra sandboxing the Xbox environment, because there are known exploits for that. I don't know. Now, unfortunately, the Xbox One is super locked down. Your console might as well be completely unusable without constant connection to Microsoft servers, and they're like the monkey in the sky, just watching your every move, injecting DRM directly into their bloodstream. Yeah, we aren't getting anywhere with that, but we still have the good old Xbox 360. I've personally found the Xbox 360 modding scene to be kind of lacking, in all honesty. Ironically, probably the coolest thing it does have to offer is Microsoft's official emulator. Because of Microsoft's decision to continue using the Zifu emulator, now that the Xbox One security has finally been defeated, we can extract the newer Zifu builds from Xbox One backwards compatible games and play them on a modded Xbox 360. Some of these Zifu builds are as new as 2021. The coolest thing by far, though, is removing the whitelist for Zifu. Removing this allows you to boot any OG Xbox game you want. This is the infamous Silent Hill Exotica running on my Xbox 360 via Zifu. Now, unfortunate for us, the desirable emulators in our case don't work. Surreal 64 crashes when loading ROMs, and again, PCSX does the same thing. Identical to the Wii, the only emulator that really does work is the GBA emulator, and the NES emulator under that runs surprisingly bad here, but theoretically, if this could be ran on an Xbox One, you would have 4 layers of emulators. I did try DOSBox in Zifu as well, but sadly it just immediately crashes. I tried different Zifu versions with no luck either. So, we still haven't even theoretically hit a higher number. I tried so many other things off camera, but a notable one was Virtual Console injects. The Nintendo 64 is a surprisingly capable emulation machine for how underpowered it is. It can do full-speed Super Nintendo emulation, but trying any of these emulators in Wii Virtual Console displays you will need a classic controller and then crashes. I think the long and drawn-out answer to the question, how many emulators can I fit inside of an emulator, is just 4. There are too many failure points down the emulator chain and not enough console generations capable of emulation to compensate. I really think 4 is the limit. I could probably make a bunch of nested virtual machines or something, but that's not the point of this video. If you count virtual machines as an emulator, which I wouldn't, I've technically reached 5 layers because I've been using a virtual machine this entire video. But if anyone knows how to increase this number, just leave a comment, I guess. I don't know.
Help me! Yes, yes, yes.